We are going to discuss the factors affecting attitude formation, and we have already named them when we were talking about factors that are affecting attitude. I want to remind you that we discussed strength of attitude, and amongst characteristics of the strength of attitude was the direct and indirect experiences, and we discussed them with conjunction to learning. So some direct experiences was the classical conditioning, the so direct learning that becomes a reflex, and indirect experiences, it could be something that I'm learning through observation or by association or reward and punishment, which is operant conditioning. So one of the exercises I asked you in the previous attitude formation or functions of attitude neopod was this slide, the slide with a boy skating, and I have asked you to tell me how mere exposure was responsible for this attitude formation. I want you to remember that mere exposure or indirect experience, okay, like seeing things all the time, is very important because it's engraved in our memory, in our brain. We get familiar with something, and when we're going to choose this something, we are opting something we know because we recognize it from something we don't know, which we have never seen before. And this is how really they use advertising, and this is why they pay so much money for advertising when a product comes to the market. They spend money on the buses, on the walls, everywhere, on pamphlets, flyers, everywhere. So I want you to remember that this direct experience or indirect experience, or even the learning, it occurs in early life from our parents, because they are the source of our attitudes. That's why we say the role model of the family and the parents are really having huge impact. Imagine that for some children up to 5 years of age, until they go to school, there is no other source of attitude formation than the parents. And then when they grow, when they go to school, or the family members, parents or the family members, extended family, could be sometimes even grandmother, grandparent, cousins. But as we grow and the child goes to school or is able to read, can grow with multiple sources. I don't know if you have ever watched Matilda or read the book Matilda. Matilda was living in an environment where everybody was so hilly-billy, I would say. And she was so different, and her source of information was the books. So she had another source to fight back the parental or the family impact when she was a baby. Matilda is a very good example of direct and indirect exposure and how people are working. And again, I remind you the attitude strength we have discussed. It's contributing more to the cognitive and affective component of our attitudes. If we're going to blend it with the ABC model, the direct experiences, they are not talking to our behavior component, they're not talking to our actions, they're talking to our emotions or to our beliefs, cognitive or affective component. And especially when we have direct personal experiences, could be something traumatic, and my brain is floating in emotion and the sadness, the serotonin or the distress hormone, then I can imprint forever through direct experience that specific attitude. For example, being a child of a divorced family, creates a traumatic experience, direct experience, and therefore an attitude towards marriage or towards potential divorce. And being rejected by peers makes you more protective and empathetic towards others who live the similar situation, because you have lived that, you've been bullied, so you can be in their shoes. Therefore, attitudes acquired this way tend to be so strong and affect our behavior for life. And they are more resistant to any change exactly because they are connected with our behavior model. And when you see things like that, bad places and good places, and you're brought up this way, you can understand the strength of the attitude. I don't want you to think that I'm repeating myself. It's not me, it's the curriculum. I want you to remember this so much that you will be able to answer it when they ask you a question. Factors affecting attitude or factors affecting attitude formation. They can say these keywords as beacons for you to remember. So I want you to remember, number 1, direct experiences. Number 2, mere exposure, indirect experiences, according to the scenario or what you have learned to remember. So let's see what the factors affecting the attitude formation, except the attitude strength and direct experiences. The indirect experience, as we said, which is how other people and things contribute to my attitude. And if I see the 3-component model, the indirect experiences, they contribute more to my behavior component. Okay? So if I see people doing something in a movie, I act the same way. When I was a child, we had so many children trying to imitate Tarzan and flying from one tree to another. They were killing themselves at the end, but it was amazing because they were trying to imitate the behavior. And we have seen that happening all the time. The models, the role models on the TVs really are impacting on our behavior. Remember what we said about the girls that are trying to become princesses and trying to become Snow Whites or whatever else? They try to imitate that behavior. So it is part of indirect experience. They are not princesses, but they think if they act like this, they will become princesses. And this is why they try to promote all this through primetime advertisement, and this is the role of the primetime advertisement. Okay, influences our attitudes by repeated exposure, mere exposure. And I want you to remember that they don't have the same strength as the emotional. This is why today I buy Coca-Cola, and then when Michael Jackson promotes Pepsi, I buy Pepsi. And then when Michael Jackson is accused about for being pedophile, I go back to Coca-Cola. Or KFC now is green and yellow. McDonald's are doing the same. Mere exposure. I can see always this, and I can nicely connect that with the sandwich. Yes. Okay, I want you to remember examples. Listening to your friends gossiping about a new student who is coming, or having an opinion about the student, actually can form an opinion you have for the student without knowing what the student. I want you to remember this mean girls kind of thing. Watching your friends buy the latest fashion makes you inclined to buy the same brand. All my daughter's friends, they buy Converse. So indirect experiences do not have the same strength, we said. Okay? Because they have less emotion. I want you to try and have an example in your mind. For example, I want you to remember why this thing is fading, why it's not becoming as emotional. And we have a biological reason, and the biological reason is everything is happening in the amygdala, in the center of our brain. So if it hits amygdala, if it hits the emotion, it's very strong. If it doesn't hit amygdala, it doesn't get into my serpent brain, it's not so strong, and I can forget it, and I can change my attitude more quickly. I'm not going anymore to KFC, to McDonald's, I'm going to Hungry Jack's. Okay. Still I have the attitude formatted about my junk food. I'm not changing that. So let's go to see how this indirect experience and direct experience are connected to association or to which is classical conditioning, or to reward and punishment model of learning, which is operant conditioning, or limitation and modeling, or by observation. We are going to watch a video, and it's a funny video, but I want you to have it in your mind when you need to remember an experiment. Okay, the video is in the third part of the chapter. It's this one. It's a funny one. I don't have time to watch it all, but it will be placed in the Nearpod after this slide, after fifth slide. So I want you to really see how this works very quickly, and I think my internet is not very good. And the voice is not very good, but it's a student work, and it really tries to persuade a person to start using Gatorade over Coca-Cola, and they try to form their attitude through operant conditioning, or through observation, or through peripheral route. And you will see this video and how nicely it will help you to understand all these things. So sometimes imitation, sometimes rewarded punishment, and sometimes classical conditioning. This is the perfect video. I want you also to remember that because you haven't done as yet what is classical conditioning, we're going to learn it. For your exams you will know it, but now you need to know that learning by association is called classical conditioning. That means I associate something very quickly with something else. It becomes very linked. There is no classical conditioning or association if something is not very positive or very negative. And sometimes a sound, a smell, something that's connected and hardwired to my brain and senses, or a saying, a memory makes us click, and or fear can make us click and do something very specific. Because we have associated one action with something else. So I have associated flying with aeroplanes with accidents, and I don't want to fly anymore. What else we need to understand is what is operant conditioning in learning. When I'm learning through reward and punishment, it is called operant conditioning. I want you to remember when we discussed about the functions in the attitude, one of the functions, the utilitarian, was related to maximizing rewards and minimizing punishments, and this is connected straight to the operant conditioning. We are learning and we're changing attitude because of that, because we are affected by the consequences. So the baby knows that every time it cries it goes to mommy, and I know every time I'm punishing my daughter because she hasn't done her homework, probably I'm losing because she hasn't made the connection that she has to do the assignment. She is doing the assignment because she's scared of the punishment. However, it is working. It's better than nothing. So operant conditioning is a process of learning where organisms learn to repeat behaviors for a positive outcome and repeat behaviors to avoid the negative outcome. Very important to remember that. We're going to learn it later in the learning component. So I learn a behavior to get something, and then I repeat the behavior to avoid the negative outcome. So I'm working for my wage and avoid to get sick leaves to keep my wage up. Or you do the same with your grades. So learning or modeling, I want you to remember that we are learning our attitudes by observing and imitating the behaviors of influential role models, the significant ones in our lives. Okay, parents, teachers, peers, film actors, music idols, models, role models. Okay, and it's very, very, very important to understand that there are very positive or negative attitudes to career choices, and they are derived from parents or teachers. I became a teacher because my mother didn't want me to become an architect or a physicist. So peers have a large influence in the lives of adolescents. If your parents tell us that it's wrong to smoke, and the parents are smoking themselves, we are more likely to develop a positive attitude to smoking. You understand what I'm saying? If our parents saying to us, it's not good to smoke, we may keep smoking. But if our friends tell us, stop smoking, it's more possible that we will stop smoking. And I want you to understand, because we know already that because the behavior influences attitudes, we remember the cognitive dissonance component, and we need to remember that these smokers trying to find as a way to explain their attitude by rationalizing that, saying, I'm going to die anyway, so what? I'll die earlier, 1 day, 2 days, 2 years, doesn't matter, good life. Or they avoid to answer, and or they obtain new information, use more statistics, more logic, and they try to persuade themselves. Okay, so I want you to remember that example with the changing attitudes, and that boy who really at the end opted Gatorade really was persuaded. Okay, so I want you to remember that persuasion is changing our attitudes, and persuasion can happen through advertisement. When we read editorial and stories in the newspapers, somehow they influence us. That's why politicians or the press is called the fourth authority, the fourth power, because they have huge power to influence us. When we get junk mail, why we get junk mail? Because we see things, we're observing things, and we are persuaded all the time. Or the spam in the messages, they make us form opinions. And even we have a conversation with our friends, parents, peers, this can change our attitudes in any way. I want you to remember all these are models of persuasion. And I want you to remember that we need to understand, and this is the next video, I'm just introducing that, the process of persuasion, and we're going to discuss the process as the peripheral and the central root, and we're going to discuss also the factors that important that a person is persuading us. So we're going to check what, how, who is telling us, and we're going to discuss the source, the message, the person. All these are the factors, and that will be the next video after that slide. Okay, until now it was the previous video. See you.